Yeah, but yeah, thank you. Okay. Oh, wow. We have. Okay. Wow. We have quite a few people.
I see myself.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Me too. Okay. Hello, everyone who's joining online. We will get started shortly. We're just settling in here in the room. Let's see. That's perfect.
Yeah, over there.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, thank you so much.
You're the best.
And would you mind upgrading me to a co-host? Thank you. Oh, oh, good question. Okay, right now it says Homeownership Division, but I'm going to rename it to Talia Concrevis.
Is your last name a combination of parents' names?
Yes.
Okay, so it's a con and a trap.
Yeah. Yeah, it leads to weird situations like after they do it, because like I wasn't gonna like add my partner's last name
Right?
onto mine or like
free hyphens.
yeah. Okay. So let's see. Oh. How about
Well, if you should, yeah, you so we can have notes.
Yeah, thank you.
Because if we share a screen, they'll see our notes.
And that would be embarrassing.
We have this memorized.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes. Or I think, I don't know. We might just be one participant and like one box among many. Okay. I'll keep the chat up.
Okay.
And we probably don't really need to see ourselves, so I'll just go like that.
I will always look at myself.
Yeah.
When I see the video of myself. I don't know.
And I guess we should be unmuted. Okay.
Well, I don't know if the microphone is feeding.
Oh, good question. Okay, let's ask him.
Why did it? Oh, she already, I was going to say, I was going to write something. $13. Are we good?
Yes. To remember to get them to use the mic. So maybe this will be, one of us will be the chat monitor, one will be the mic runner, and
Okay.
one will be the facilitator. Depending
Oh,
on what it
okay,
is.
okay.
Okay.
Sure.
Cool. Well, welcome everybody. Everybody ready to get started and kick off the Housing Oregon conference? Thanks for joining us today. If you're feeling low in energy, there's candy at your tables. Guess it's never too early. Yeah. Thanks, Magda. I'm Talia Concrevis, Operations and Policy Analyst at Ohcs'S.
Yeah, my name is Magda Bejarano. Also Operations and Policy Analyst, helping with language access and community relationships. It's great to see you all here this morning.
And I'm Willie Schumann. I'm the former research analyst assigned to the Homeownership division. I'm currently sitting as the research team's data manager. So I'll be covering a lot of our data stuff.
So we're psyched to be here and have a very interactive conversation with you all, hence the tables and the Post-it notes and the scrap paper. And so we're here, we'll start off by telling you a little bit about what we have going on within our division. So within specifically the homeownership division, and then we'll move into a more just sharing part of the workshop. So our design question today that we're hoping to work through with you all is, and did the slide switch? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, great. How might we collectively build a safety net that supports people to buy, maintain, and build equity in their home? And so I see a bunch of familiar faces and know that you were all involved in pieces of that safety net. So we're hoping to really crowdsource what does this safety net look like and how can we collectively build that safety net today. And so we just wanted to start off with an interactive activity, and I'll pass it over to Magda and be prepared to get out your Post-it notes.
Yeah. Okay, well, all these technology things to keep in mind, but so if you haven't had a chance to just introduce yourselves among people in your table, and this is an opportunity to do that. And we would like you to discuss what does the term safety net mean to you in the context of homeownership. So if you can maybe think of your own experience, think of what you have learned through working with the community. What does it take to create a network of support that allows people to get into a home, maintain it, and grow equity for their family? So we are going to spend, I don't know how many minutes, like 10 minutes, 5 minutes discussing among yourselves. And then I want to invite each one of you to write like the top 3 or 4 ideas that come to your mind in a sticky note. And then when you're ready, come and put them all in that board. And then we'll process this together and just share our thoughts.
What words come to mind when you hear safety net?
Yeah, so just discuss as a group, as a table, spitball together.
Words to the Post-it notes.
Yeah.
You can throw the Post-it notes up on the board when you're ready. So you could do it individually or together. Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's tell. Oh, great. Perfect.
Yeah. Yeah, and also think of like holistic approach. So even after home ownership, what kind of services might people need? Maybe maintenance and repair stuff. So yeah, trying to think like the whole, pre-purchase, after purchase, all of that good stuff. Anything relating to home ownership. Make it a nice holistic view.
All right. Yeah, I'm just checking. Our own words, yeah. Oh, yeah. No. Sure. I mentioned, feel free to talk amongst yourselves. Emergency savings. So someone.
So maybe take about 2 more minutes and start putting your words on the paper and bringing them up. We'll be discussing this more in length, so this won't be the last time. Yeah.
For those of you who are just joining, we're doing a simple activity where try to answer this question. What does the term safety net mean to you when it comes to home ownership? So in the context of home ownership, please sit at a table if you would be so kind. Come up with any ideas that you think of. We'll put it on the board over there. For those of you in chat, we will be passing around the mic at some point to hear from the audience. So have a little more interaction there. Replacement savings.
Magda.
Have any sound?
It should, is it green? Should have sound.
Okay, well, I don't know that this makes a difference, maybe for the people in Zoom, but so let's come back all together, kind of into a group again. And I'm going to read through our thoughts this morning and share some of the words that we have written for the group. And as I try to organize them in groups, if anybody wants to share their thoughts that you had while you were writing these questions. So safety net in the context of homeownership, we have education and knowledge. We have, thank you. Last minute thoughts. Okay, good. We have peace of mind, confidence, network of support and resources. We have a legacy, being able to pass down to family. We also have resources for repairs. This is from someone in the chat in our Zoom. Emergency savings and assets. replacement savings and replacement. I'm thinking this relates to like repairs and okay. Post-purchase education and follow-up. That is, I like that a lot. We also have covers the entire cycle of homeownership. Barrier removal, which I think it's also something that goes kind of throughout the entire cycle of homeownership. Down payment assistance. I'm gonna move this. I'm gonna try to create a line. It doesn't look like it, but it will. Affordability, that's important. Jumping from renting to owning, and education also again. Financial literacy, maintaining and sustainability, and living wages, very important. So let's see, I think we have a couple that talk about education and knowledge, right? Like how to do it, financial literacy. This is education again, and taking that jump from renting to owning, which is typically a big deal. Then we have the affordability, living wages, and kind of all the financial supports and things that need to be in place. I want to put in there the emergency savings also, which is kind of part of the ongoing process after you've purchased. Resources for repairs. And then we have the post-purchase. Oops. So post-purchase education and follow-up. Barrier removal. I'm just going to leave here in the middle, this in the middle. More financial. These are not very sticky. Yeah. Sorry. Let's push them hard there. Okay. And what about things like confidence, peace of mind? I mean, I think this is, do you get this through education? Do you get this through financial options? So I'm going to leave those there. I think those are really important. Network of support and resources. And I think this is also kind of general. This could be family, social, financial. Do you guys want to share any thoughts about these? Like more specific, what kind of support were you thinking of? Oh, counseling and services. Okay, so like, okay.
Oh, you're done. You're done.
And adding to what James eloquently said, I would probably say too, is it takes like that saying, takes a tribe to raise a child. Sometimes the same thing goes with anyone who wants to build financial assets. You need the appropriate resources, whether that's families, friends who can give you the knowledge, the information, that if you can develop a network that strengthens you, that way you can have a safety net.
Anyone else want to share thoughts? Want the mic back?
Down payment assistance. Okay, cool. Well, I think we see some things. We have the education, knowing how to do it, having support from different places in our communities to do it. We have the financial aspects, whether that is have wages that allow you to do that, the financial resources, down payment assistance. And then we have these other elements like peace of mind, confidence, you know, like how, just having that knowledge that you can do it and the trust that you could go through that process. And then we have some notes that just kind of cover the entire cycle, like removing barriers along the way, maintaining the home and making your homeownership sustainable, and covering the entire life cycle of homeownership. So cool. I think we have some really good thoughts to carry us throughout the remaining of the presentation. So thank you so much for sharing with yourselves and with the group. And so,
Awesome. Thanks, Magda. Great. So we're going to shift a little bit away from the safety net visioning, but keep all those things in mind because we're coming back to it. So we just wanted to start off by, for those who may or may not be familiar, whoops, okay. We're going to populate this for the Zoom people, but we didn't end up doing that. So sorry, Zoom people. So this is just a map of the homeownership division and all the programs that we have going on or about to be going on, launching soon. So just sharing this as a way of showing what supports exist through the state. Whereas, you know, some of you do work for the state here and some of you work for community organizations that may be providing very different supports or supports that flow because of some of these supports or in part because of them. So we have our homeownership assistance program, which is funding a lot of services to home buyers and homeowners. So a lot of things that were already brought up, but we work with the homeownership centers that are represented all across the state. And these homeownership centers often provide down payment assistance and repair funding and training and technical assistance, or we have funding to give them funds for training and technical assistance. We have our manufactured and marina communities section, which has a manufactured housing replacement program. We provide gap funding so that manufactured homeowners can upgrade to a more energy efficient home. And then we have a manufactured Marina and Manufactured Community Resource Center that supports with dispute resolution. And then we have our homeownership assistance section, which includes our homeownership assistance fund, which is funding to people going through the late stages of foreclosure and also foreclosure assistance counseling. We have our lending section, which includes the two products, the Oregon Bond Residential Loan Program and our soon to be Flex Lending program. The homeownership development section, which includes LIFT, flexible homeownership development funds, which is a new program, and our land acquisition program. So those are all types of funding. And then newer to our division is a racial disparities section that supports all these different sections related to making all these programs more accessible and inclusive, and then supporting partners externally. So that's what we do. Happy to share more about any of these if people are interested. We'll keep running through the presentation. We wanted to just frame everything within the context of the statewide housing plan. So I'll pass it over to Lily.
All right, so we're getting in a little bit into our data stuff. So we're pretty much following the guidance laid out in our statewide housing plan. So this is kind of our central pillar in terms of providing services through housing in Oregon. And specifically in homeownership, we want to try to close the home ownership gap. We see that there's a large gap in ownership among racial groups in Oregon. I mean, all across the country, but specifically in Oregon. So we know for a fact that homeownership rates are lower among people of color in Oregon. And for white non-Hispanic Oregonians, it's around 63%, but for Hispanic and non-white Oregonians, excuse me, it's around 42%. So part of one of our major goals is trying to shrink this gap, this disparity that we're seeing, and ensure that everyone has access to the benefits and the wealth building that homeownership offers. So within the statewide housing plan, it's broken up in our agency's many departments or divisions. So we have like homeless services, affordable rental housing, and homeownership has its own priority. And it's written in the plan as providing low and moderate income Oregonians with the tools to successfully achieve and maintain homeownership, particularly communities of color. And And there's 3 goals listed underneath this priority. So this is the main focus driving homeownership as a division. And then we have goals that we're trying to meet at the end of our 5-year plan, which happens to end in 2023. So the goals were to assist 6,500 households in becoming successful homeowners, double the number of homeowners of colors in OHCS programs, and maintain 30% of Oregonians served by our homeownership programs. That population be 30% people of color. So I'll go ahead and highlight a little bit of kind of our progress towards this goal. We launched the statewide housing plan in 2019. So currently we've served 2,301 new homeowners out of the 6,500. So we have a lot of work to do in 1 year. I will caveat all this. This was a statewide housing plan during the pandemic, which is still ongoing. But so we had a lot of low activity years in 2020 and 2021. We're starting to pick back up to 2019 era levels of participation in our programs. For the goal 2, we've served about 2,273 people of color in 2019. And currently we've served 3,784. So we're almost getting to that double. We still have to serve, a couple thousand more individuals to double it. And hopefully in the next 5 years, we can continue to double that. And then overall, throughout all of our programs, 32% of all participants identify as a person of color. And that's across all of our programs. So across HOPE programs, that includes DPA, counseling and education. It includes our foreclosure avoidance, the Homeownership Assistance Fund, our new program to help people reinstate their mortgages. It includes everything that we do. So we're doing pretty good at meeting that goal, at least. We've met that goal, but we still have more work to be done. I would also like to highlight programs like our DPA, our down payment assistance program. We see a higher proportion of people of color in those programs. So that's closer to 56% of clients utilizing the down payment assistance are identifying as people of color. So I just wanted to highlight that's a very successful program for us. And we've also, I'll get into this a little bit later, but we've also revamped how we're going to approach DPA in the future to try to address some of the racial disparities that we see. And I'm going to hand it back over to Magda to kind of go. Oh yeah, go ahead. Of course, yes. I think the people on the internet can hear you.
So my question
there
is if 2,300 were new homeowners, goal 2 is about a much broader thing than actually making people homeowners, right? It's about all
Correct.
the different services that they could get. They could get a counseling session, they could get assistance as a homeowner. So it's much broader, and we need to be clear about this, because if our goal is to get people of color into homeownership and sustain them there, then that goal is, it should be broken down if possible around how many of those people have actually gotten into homeownership.
Correct. And these are the specific number you do see is we do record if someone has purchased a home through one of the homeownership centers. So that is actually the total number of people since 2019 who have purchased a home through a homeownership center. So that likely means that they attended, like you were saying, counseling and education at a homeownership center. They may have received DPA through the homeownership center. So you are correct. It is a much more complicated story. But this was strictly just looking at how many people left a homeownership center and said that they were able to purchase a home after receiving some sort of service. Any other questions from the audience or clarifications? Yeah. Yeah, well, yes, we will be talking about initiatives on how we're trying to accomplish these goals, correct? And highlighting some of the data elements that we use to try to reevaluate our programs to try to better address, these specific goals. Yes.
So, and I'm going to ask the new guy doesn't know anything question.
Sure.
So how does somebody access these programs? You have this list of programs, or is this all just connect direct with OHCS? Is there an intermediary organization that makes a referral? And maybe you'll get into it later, but I'd be interested to know kind of within that, what changes you've made to try to achieve these goals.
Yeah, and to answer some of that question, it depends on the program. A lot of our programs are executed by our homeownership centers, so they typically do all the outreach around education courses or DPA. We do also partner with banks for our loan products, so those are with specific lenders that we partner with, so they will offer those services. When someone comes in to say like pre-approved for a mortgage, they'll educate them on potential avenues for our loan products, which are typically trying to be, below market rate, interest rate loans. But yeah, it depends. And yeah, we'll dive a little bit more into some of the program details further on in the presentation. All right. If there's no questions, I'll let Magda take, right up front. Yes. Oh, thank you so much. Thank you, audience, for participating in the mic passing.
Hi, Kimberly Bacon, Urban League of Portland. I was just, after listening to everybody else, I then got really curious. What are the disqualifiers, and have you looked at those from an equity lens?
Oh, that's an excellent question. I am unaware if we have looked at disqualifiers. I don't know all of the eligibility criteria for all of the programs. These two are better at program stuff. I'm more of the data person, but that is certainly a reason why Magda and Talia were brought on board, is to try to look at how we're designing our programs to make sure that we're doing it through an equity lens. And so I think, yeah, what are the current barriers that are in place around eligibility? I know a lot of our programs are usually income restricted. So 100% of area median income or below. I know that's one for DPA. I think counseling and education is open to anyone. I don't know if there's any restrictions around that kind of service, but typically in government, we put eligibility criteria around any kind of service that is giving funding to people. That's not my decision, but yeah, I'll let Magda and Talia cover that. Oh, did you have something? Yeah. Well, yeah, I can talk about that in a bit, but like there are programs like the Flex Lending program. We tried to look at specific common factors that people may need around needing a loan product, and specifically building it around common factors of communities of color that need assistance, so that we can target those resources to those communities. I know in DPA, we've evaluated kind of, this isn't necessarily around eligibility criteria, but we've looked at kind of the resources needed to buy a home in Oregon right now. It's pretty extensive, and I'll go into more detail when I show you the data, but typically someone needs around an additional $30,000 in addition to the down payment assistance they're receiving from a home ownership center. And of course, that disparity is higher among people of color, specifically around Black Oregonians. They typically need around $35,000 to $40,000 more to be able to purchase a home. And so we're trying to look at the data that we collect to try to see, okay, where are these disparities? How can we redesign our programs or reevaluate our programs and come to them from a more equity focused lens? And with DPA, we were able to we were able to basically redesign the program to not only offer greater down payment assistance, especially during this housing crisis, but it specifically target communities of colors, with greater funding opportunities. So I'll go into a little more detail around that, but thank you for bringing that up, Talia. Hopefully that answers your question, or at least provides a little bit of insight to how we're working through these issues. Yeah, it's a start, I know. We're trying to get there. All right, Magda?
Yeah, and I think that, I mean, that question of, let me see if I can move to the next slide is, how do we break that down, right? And how do we really understand what it takes to really bring everybody to have somehow equitable options to becoming homeowners, to keep their homes? What are the things that make a difference? Like, is it kind of looking at our exercise? Is it the financial assets and possibilities? Is it having the confidence that they can do it? Is it being able to access the education? So how do we break that down? So definitely that question of homeownership brings up the question of equity. And we know, kind of sharing what Willie shared, is that race is one of those human elements that has made a difference in people's ability to purchase and maintain a home. We know that through data. We know that even today, people of color are less likely to be homeowners or to maintain their home. We know that even when some financial and economic factors are controlled, they experience a higher rate of denials of loans. They have to get loans that are under, how do you say, like, what's the word? Like, there's a word for that. You know, they have higher interest rates. Yeah, they're more predatory loans. So race is definitely one aspect of equity. And, you know, these disparities have just been with us through history, right? Through just policies that originally target specific racial groups, but have also morphed to be more of a bias that remains within our financial and economic system. And so breaking that down and trying to achieve the goal of making more people of color homeowners, we have to think about strategies that acknowledge that difference, right? And that account for those discrepancies in rates that we see based on race today. So this figure here shows a little bit about the framework that we are trying to think through to address those racial inequalities in homeownership, and some of the strategies that we think can be put in place to do that. So in our division, we are trying to address inequities through data that can inform, or that we can try to use to understand a little bit more why we're here, the reasons why we're here. We're also trying to form strategic partnerships, and we will go into detail about these and let you know a little bit more how these are looking like in our day-to-day work. We're also thinking about language access, and we know that there is a close relationship between a person's race and maybe the language they speak is not 100%, right? We have people of all races that may or may not speak a different language, but there is a kind of a close correlation in the United States, mostly immigrants who speak other languages. And then also, how are we intentional with our reach, and how do we connect with those groups of or communities that are underserved or that are underrepresented as homeowners? So we'll go a little bit more into detail here. And as we share this with you, we want to kind of hear your thoughts about how to approach these inequities, and how, as an organization that partners with the community, what other angles can we take to start addressing these inequities? Okay, so I'm gonna pass it to Talia to talk a little bit about our, wait,
And just to
To Willie.
finally, after this, we're gonna ask for examples from you all of how you are instilling these components within your programs. So start thinking of your examples, and our goal is to kind of plug in all these different programs into a larger safety net spectrum by the end of this.
So I mentioned this a little bit when I was discussing earlier. We've designed a dashboard that captures our performance essentially on our programs. It's the goal of this dashboard is to capture all of our program information for this dashboard to be publicly available, which it is. You can find it on the OHCS website, and feel free to reach out to me after this, and I can certainly send you a link to it. And the point of this is to not only be transparent in how we're doing, but also to use this data to better inform our policy decisions in program implementation. And we have, this is also to help staff. So I'm not technically in the homeownership division. I work closely with them. And so this was designed so that staff could also keep track of how we're performing, see who our partners are, how they're doing in their regions. And so we use this tool to monitor a lot of our performance. Each year we have what are called key performance metrics that we have to make. One of it is based off our Oregon Bond residential loan program, and the other one is looking at the total number of people of color served throughout the entirety of the home ownership program suite. And so, as I pointed out earlier, we are at 32% of people of color served throughout all of our programs. And the other Oregon Bond one is to see how many bonds that we've issued throughout the year. I'm going to attempt to share, do a little interactive sharing of the dashboard. How do I do that? Oh, slide it over. Okay, well, I don't know how I'm going to be able to. Where's the other screen? Okay, this will be weird for me. So this is what the dashboard looks like. You can navigate to the different programs through these buttons at the top. I'm going to go to down payment assistance since I mentioned this earlier, and because this is one of the ways in which we've used this tool to better understand how to change the program to better serve Oregonians, especially during a time in Oregon's history where there's low affordability, low inventory, and so there's a desperate need for increased funding for people to have down payment assistance. And so this is the main page I designed. You can navigate back and go to historic data. And there's also additional data throughout this, but I'm going to highlight a specific section that I mentioned earlier. But this has a ton of information about who received down payment assistance, who received veteran down payment assistance. So there's a special program or a pot of set aside funds specifically for veterans. We also partner with other municipalities that have what's called a community excise tax, which allows them to save a portion of their money for down payment assistance. And so that can be used in tandem with our own DPA product. So that's additional money that people can use. Just want to highlight, you can look at the average amount of DPA that homebuyers have received. The maximum our limit used to be $15,000. That was the maximum amount someone could attain from the down payment assistance program. But yeah, you can look at our historical data. We have racial and ethnic breakdown of clients served. One thing that I think is really important to highlight, and I mentioned this earlier, is that we were looking at how many additional sources of need. So typically down payment assistance alone isn't enough for someone to purchase a home. They might need a gift or a second mortgage loan, or access an additional program that maybe a local homeownership center has, or a specific municipality might have. And on average, everybody who goes through the program needed at least one more additional source of DPA. And you can see that the additional funding was around $25,000. So that's including the $15,000. That means people need around $40,000 on average. But we have it set up so that you can look at, like, if you want to look at urban or rural, or if you want to look at specific racial groups, you can see, like we see with Black and African American, they still need, people typically on average need an additional one, but you can see that there's a greater amount of money required. And this is all based on the actual people who have utilized the program. And so this kind of informed this idea, because we were coming to a point in the DPA program where we were reevaluating how we should move forward. So we were launching a new master grant agreement with our partners around this program. And so we decided that, one, due to the increasing cost of housing in Oregon, specifically purchasing a home, we upped the amount of the maximum amount to $30,000. So moving forward, people will be able to access $30,000. And then we added additional allowances specifically for culturally specific organizations to offer up to $90,000 to the communities that they serve of down payment assistance, which is, I mean, that's a significant amount of money, and it's much needed money, especially in areas like Portland, where the cost of housing is so high, and where a lot of the population, a lot of community of color live in the Portland metro area. And so by collecting this data and evaluating it, we were able to see that, yes, there's obviously a huge need for additional resources to be put into DPA. And when we were designing the new grant agreement, we wanted to include not only a racial focus to make sure that we're offering additional resources to our partners who specifically serve the community of color within Oregon, but also make sure that everyone gets an additional amount of funding, because it's just so hard to be able to purchase a home with $15,000. And so we're trying to move with the times and try to get more funding out there for individuals. And I believe my time is up. But if you do have any data questions, please feel free to contact me. You can get my contact information on the very bottom of the dashboard. Is the contact information for me. I'm always willing to answer questions about the dashboard or any of the data that we have. Yeah, I want to make sure that we're using our data in a responsible and ethical way. So if you see something that's glaringly bad, please let me know too. Like, I want to make sure that this is a tool we can use to advance racial equity. I don't want this to be used as, I don't want this to be misused, but please feel free to contact me if you have any questions around this. And if you want to have access to this, you can get it through the Ohcs'S website, or you can contact me directly and I'll send you a link for sure. And with that, I will withdraw that, and I'll hand it back to our lovely co-presenters. Oh, you're welcome.
Great. So we're going to keep going through that framework for building equity into programs and I'll talk a tiny bit about strategic partnerships. Pass it to Magda. So one thing that we are working to do is just expand our network of partners that are in the homeownership world. we know that a lot of partners are doing lots of different things like building affordable housing and homes for purchase and providing all sorts of counseling and education. So we are trying to bring more partners into the fold that can benefit from our programs. So one example is our homeownership centers, which we've been alluding to a lot. This is the list of our homeownership centers, and we recognize that it takes some time to become a homeownership center, and there are some hoops to jump through. Raise your hand if you represent a homeownership center in this room. Oh, okay, great. Oh my goodness. Do you want to share what homeownership centers you're from? Great. Awesome. Great. There's some over here. Yeah. Awesome. Great, great. Yeah, so hoping to expand our network of homeownership centers who really are the lifeblood of a lot of our homeownership programs. They're the ones, to answer your question, they're the ones on the ground delivering the services, getting the DPA out the door. Willie was describing that we've restructured some of our DPA funding. So we have funding that's specific for culturally specific organizations. And so those are highlighted in bold, and that funding goes out in somewhat of a different way. And so that's one way we're seeking to expand partnerships and reduce barriers to becoming a homeownership center. We also are working to slowly build the pipeline of developers that are building homes for purchase. So we have some developers in the room too, and there's this may or may not be a true statement, but it seems like there are more multifamily builders than homes for purchase, affordable home builders. And so working to make it easier to step into the homeownership, building single family homes or different models for purchase. And so creating a pipeline of funding that can get organizations there. So those are just some ways.
Talia, I'll just add that Vienna Star and PCRI are new to our homeownership network. So that's part of our effort to increase culturally specific organizations among our homeownership center partners. So I just wanted to add that.
Okay, and our language access. Our language access work in our division is fairly new. We started kind of crafting this program earlier this year. It's a new position for our agency, but for language access, this means helping people who speak a different language or that have limited proficiency in English have the same access to the homeownership services and programs that are available in the community for anybody else. And we know that about 15% or a little over 15% of the population in Oregon speak a language other than English. And of them, about 40% have limited proficiency. So if you have tried to do, I'm sure you have all done some like processes with your banks or applied for a loan or sign a contract, and that seems a little complicated when you have to read through all those pages, then you can only imagine how much harder and just scary it can be for someone who has limited proficiency or is just learning the language. So part of increasing that equity is offering those services. Our division is trying to do this in two different ways, like two sides of the same coin. One is working in home, and that is improving the documents that we have, our own materials to translations of website content, forms, notices, just information that goes out to the public. this is a new effort for us. Like I said, in 2020, the legislature actually approved some funds to help homeownership services expand that access. So that is how Ohcs'S is able to do this work and to think strategically around that. And I just wanted to show some examples of what we have done in this process internally so far to expand this access. We're closely working with our communications department, and James is here from that. So he's been also part of that process. So some of the things that we have done are translating our materials, and we are so far looking at the top 4 languages that are spoken in the state. So Spanish, Chinese, Vietnamese, Russian. This is an example of the web page for the HAF program. Is the Homeownership Assistance Fund that helps homeowners that are having difficulties to pay their mortgage so that they avoid going to foreclosure, or that they don't have to go to foreclosure. And what you see there is a copy of the user guide or the application guide so that they can apply for this program translated into different languages. We also have translated the program applications, so that people can put their application online just using the language they speak. This is also, it's available in Spanish right now, but it's being translated into Vietnamese and Chinese as well. This is how that looks like. And this is another example for the manufactured home replacement program. It's a program that helps owners of manufactured homes that are inefficient, old, and that don't meet the energy standards of today to replace their homes. So these people can access a loan with no interest, forgivable loan through our programs to replace their homes for one that is safe and energy efficient. And we wanted to make the program guide accessible to the community through translations. So this is how that looks translated in Spanish, just a screenshot of that. And we've also want to, part of our work in this area is to work with the community to help increase access to the existing programs and services to non-English speakers. So we are doing this through financial assistance and technical assistance. And part of our role is to distribute some of the funds that the legislature has made available for this purpose. And here is kind of an announcement, but we will be having an RFA coming out towards the end of the year, the winter, to help community organizations that have home ownership programs and services to expand their services to people who don't speak English or that may have special communication needs to a disability. So people who use sign language or that maybe need formats in Braille to be able to read. This RFA, again, will be coming out in the winter months. So just keep an eye out for that. And let me see. Okay, I think I covered that, and I'm going to take a couple more minutes to also talk about other than the language access, how we are trying to pair that up with intentional outreach. And like we said, we want to take all this information to the communities that are underrepresented as homeowners, which go beyond our non-English language speakers. We know people of color, members of the federal recognized tribes also have low home ownership rates. So we're trying to think strategically about how to share with them what's available to our homeownership centers and to the programs that Ohcs'S is able to finance. And we are doing this through some different venues. One is leading targeted outreach initiatives, and an example of these, and I don't know if James, you were part of that too, but over the spring, I'm going to say maybe, we had a series of Facebook Lives to talk to people, to the community about foreclosure counseling, assistance, and how to access those. And this series of Facebook Lives was done in partnership with many community organizations, and they were done in English and Spanish. And so that's an example of how we could target our outreach to make sure that some specific communities are learning about our programs and being able to ask questions and interact. The second thing we are doing is applying an equity lens to our own outreach initiatives and just seeing where do we have gaps. An example of that was the outreach campaign for the HAF program, the foreclosure assistance program. Our organization worked with community organizations and a marketing company to have a campaign to let people know that the program is open, that they could apply for assistance if they were having issues paying their mortgage. And so in looking at that campaign, we identified some gaps, like our non-English speakers. So we have been intentionally working with culturally specific organizations that save Chinese speakers, Vietnamese speakers, Russian speakers, to make sure that they are aware that the program is open, that we have an application in their language that they can complete and that they can apply to the program. We're also working internally with our own staff to create awareness and tools about how to engage and have meaningful rapport with these communities. What does that mean to do outreach in the community? What does it mean to talk to the community about opportunities that exist? An example of that is a guide that my coworker Sarah, who couldn't be here today, is creating about what do we need to know and to interact with our Oregon federally recognized tribes, like what is important for them. How does all homeownership look like for them? What are their needs? What can we do better? And so just working with them to learn those, working with our other people in our organization that have developed some of those skills and knowledge, and then pass that on to our staff to start creating those skills internally so that we can just be more intentional in working with them. And finally, we have, again, some funds from the legislature to pass on to the community so that the community, our boots in the ground, can also help us increase the visibility of our programs throughout the state. So that RFA that is coming up in the winter will have some funds for community organizations to help with outreach, and that those funds can pay for things like marketing campaigns, participating in fairs, organizing fairs, delivering services on site, and just kind of be an extension of their presence in those communities. I think I said a lot really fast, but does anybody have any questions or thoughts about that? Yes. Oh, microphone.
I see that you're not doing outreach to mortgage originators. Is that a different division of OHCS, or is that not viewed as something that's important to do?
Yeah, well, it is viewed as something really, really important to do. I would say that because our language access program and strategies is really, really new. That is an area. Oh, yeah. Well, yeah, I think we have a lot of connections and want to develop more connections with those partners like lenders, those type of organizations. And so it is also part of our community outreach and engagement program that we've also just started more intentionally this year. So I would say it is really important. We have not been able to get to it, but also I think some of our programs have more direct contact with lenders, like in those financial institutions that we have right now. So I think it's an area still to be more developed, but it is really important. And thank you for bringing that up. Yeah.
Oh, were you gonna go? I was gonna add about the HAF program. Were you gonna talk about that, Talia?
No, I was gonna.
Okay. I was just gonna add, with the HAF program, we have, we set some, we put some energy into lender outreach because that's specifically a program looking to reinstate people's loans, pay down their delinquencies. So it necessitated that kind of partnership and looking at what lenders wanted to participate and reaching out to lenders to know that the program exists, first of all, and to get them on board, because we couldn't run that program specifically without the support of lenders or other banks and servicers to help us be able to assist people who might be experiencing foreclosure or have large delinquencies due to the COVID-19 pandemic. Did you want to
Just add quickly, for very specific programs, we have specific partnerships with lenders. So through our Oregon residential bond loan program, there is, I think there's about 14 lenders that are registered to offer bond loans. And then through our Flex program, and we haven't opened that up for a while, which isn't great. But through our Flex program, we'll be opening up an RFA to accept new lenders who will offer these mortgage products. And I think that will be a good opportunity to bring more diverse lenders into the fold. And we welcome suggestions from you all on how we should approach doing that.
I wrote it down but I think it's a good segue into it when you're looking at lenders and you're looking at your equity lens. I don't know if it's your division or somebody else, but is there somebody looking at how gentrification happens and to prevent that? So then you're not needing to give all these new loans. You've helped people not lose their neighborhoods and communities, because it's not just getting people of color and Black people into homes, but it's helping recreate that community that's been lost or intentionally stolen.
That's an excellent point. And we do have in a development section that does, we just did a research project looking specifically at gentrification and the impact of development in specific neighborhoods. The tool indicates risk of gentrification, or identifies areas that are gentrifying. And so yes, that is something that's being looked at, but not necessarily in the homeownership development section, but in other sections.
Well, because it plays into that little section of just only little 3 post-its about security, right? Like you can give me all that stuff on the right side, but if I'm in a community where I feel unsafe or unwanted, which has often happened, and I get pushed out, even if it's not gentrification, but it's just community pressure. So I bought a house that I now can't live in because my neighbors are burning crosses on my front lawn.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think that's a really critical question, is how overarching, and I really applaud the staff at the department in terms of the strategic planning and the communication we've had about a lot of these programs in our meetings, and many people participate in that. But to prevent gentrification, one of the tools I think we've been trying to promote is the community land trust. It holds homes in permanent affordability, and Proud Ground does that role, and in partnership with a lot of other agencies, which is helping people get into a home they can afford, and that home stays off the open market in perpetuity, so we don't have the kinds of families being pushed out as they were in Northeast Portland in huge numbers and pushed out to the numbers without equity. So I think that is one element we want to put on the table. Is I really appreciate the data work, and at the same time we got to remember that OHCS is a funding entity, right? And you're trying to help provide support to a lot of us that are doing this work, as you say, boots on the ground. So it's important to delineate roles. I mean, we're doing outreach every day, and it's a real challenge, especially during COVID, to really talk to people face to face. And you guys can help in ways that could be helpful, but you shouldn't try to duplicate that at the state level. That doesn't make any sense. Help us do a better job of reaching our communities with more authenticity. And the last thing I would say is the big barrier out there. You can get people mortgage ready. You can do all the things, you know, support them and all that. The biggest piece is that gap between what they can afford in their mortgage and what it actually costs on the open market to either buy or build. And that is upwards of $100,000 per unit right now. So thank you for upping the amount. Yeah, Candy, even more than that, upping the amount for down payment assistance. We bring 2 or 3 or 4 layers in to help a family get into a home, and then keep it permanently affordable for future families. So great partnership. And still, we need to really lean into those strategies that help people get a key in their hands to stabilize their families and build equity over generations. And we want to keep in real direct communication with all of you about that, so we can help do that on the ground.
Yeah, thank you. And those 2 last points are just a really good segue into our next activity, which we had 2 activities planned, but we're going to condense them into one. So let me explain it. So we really wanted to come out of this with collectively creating what are the pillars of a safety net? What would these categories be along the safety net spectrum? And what programs exist and where are their gaps? And so we created our own here based on our programs, but we know that our programs, like you said, we are a funding organization. We partially provide some direct service these days, but mostly are a funding organization. And so we use these to spur more work on the ground. But we want you to help us fill in what that net should be and where are their gaps and where should the state be playing more of a role if we can, and where should we say, hey, partners, you're doing really good work. Like, how can we support you more in that work? So at your tables, if you can think about what these pillars might be and also start talking with each other, what are your programs that fall under those pillars? What do you see your clients or your constituents, whoever you work with, what do you see them needing to access and where are their gaps? And so work together at your table. There's scrap paper if you want to draw your own safety net. Each paper could be a different pillar. Feel free to use the Post-it notes. And for those of you on Zoom, if you want to draw your own safety net and hold it up for us, or type some ideas in the chat, we would love to hear from you as well. So we'll take the next 15 minutes to work on this. It is big. Oh, we can also give you this sheet of
You want to read this? Okay, that's about it. time is it? 11:30.
So maybe.
Yeah.
Share.
Yeah, let's do
We're asking them really big
11:37.
questions,
Yeah.
so I feel like we need to give them some.
We can just close it or keep it here.
I know I talked too much. I'm sorry. I can talk forever. We do. I can't imagine if Sarah was here. Take this. Definitely.
Yeah.
And reviewing eligibility criteria. I know some of that's out of our control with like federal programs and programs designed by the legislature.
But how do you expand that outreach and access to our financial partners and
Mhm.
also
I didn't put a title for myself. Yeah, look at your.
It's really fun.
it's my resume.
Do you have a question?
Okay, how's it going? Awesome.
Look at that color.
Rachel's.
Two Rachels?
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool. What organization did you come from? I can't remember.
This was.
Oh, three organizations. Yeah.
They called it Big Changes.
Okay.
It's like
So like a
doesn't exist anymore.
nonprofit startup kind of thing. Oh, cool.
Yeah.
How'd that go? Obviously, it doesn't exist anymore. So
Sustain.
yeah, microlending is really, yeah. I've heard it is very difficult. Yeah. Wait, where did you work with? Oh, okay, that's right. I forgot that. I remember Fiona's resume of working in Coos Bay, and so I was like, "You were at Coos Bay?"
Yeah.
This is gonna be the only one writing right now, so.
That's okay.
That's the big option.
Yeah.
They're in conversation.
All right. Yep. Yep. That has been part of the conversation of reserving portion of the DPA fund to cover that, like, so that people don't exhaust their savings. Because that is a huge concern. We don't want to set people up to fail. You know what I mean? Yeah, we can go a little bit over.
We can hold these people captive.
No, we don't. We can, we can,
Doesn't update for me. Oh, but it's updating now. Okay. All right, 4 more minutes to create the most comprehensive safety net you can possibly imagine. I know. Yeah, check the doors. Nobody knows. I really thought that you would create a oh, sure.
yeah. Oh, sure. Thank you. Of course. Of course.
All right, everyone, let's come back together because we only have a few more minutes and it's going to be lunchtime pretty soon. We'd love to hear what you were talking about at your tables. We'll end with this one because it seems like you guys really mapped out the safety net, which is awesome. So let's start the grand finale over here. If everybody could just share, maybe like designate one person from your table to share 1 or 2 resonant things that you spoke about. even if you didn't create a whole safety net.
We're sharing our pillars.
Yes, yes.
Okay. Oh, okay. All right.
And we only have a couple minutes, so maybe take like 1 minute to do it.
Oh gosh. Okay, so we talked about stabilizing families first, like kind of being the first pillar of like, we can't even talk about home ownership if you're struggling to find affordable rental units. So that was a good piece. We talked about folks having the desire and confidence and just knowing that like home ownership is possible. Like they may have the desire, but just feel like that's not something I will ever be able to do. And so how do we let folks know, like, if that is something you have the desire for, like, then there is a possibility there. And then that jumps into knowledge and access to programs that can help fill those gaps, if it's a financial gap or an education gap or whatnot. And then network and community. So once you own a home, and this is going to what I think you were saying a little bit of, like making sure folks are able to buy a home in a space that they feel safe in, that they have a community, so that as they are a homeowner, they have resources still, like those networks and that information and just that community that can support them as life happens and they may need assistance. And I think that those are the big points, but did I forget anything? Okay.
Thank you.
Awesome.
All right, moving on to the next table. Oh, here we go.
We talked about the need for more down payment assistance. That's something that we are constantly seeing in our clients. Once you get into a home, maintaining the property, maintenance. Also, in the work that I do, my clients, I see a lot of I-10 and DACA holders who are not able to get into any kind of lending programs without having to put down 20, 25% with a 10% interest rate. And just more investment in getting people into homes, and people of BIPOC communities, and just keeping them there. Foreclosure prevention. That's a good one too.
Awesome, thanks. All right, the star group. Who wants to talk? Do it.
So we had many items that you already placed up there, but some of them, just to kind of break them out into how we reviewed them, is economics, education, community network, health, and resources. So briefly with economics, it's just about funding, finding the ways to meet that gap of how to meet the need for those individuals, especially in those areas that are not always able to access that type of funding, finding a way to increase their financial stability, and also to address inflation issues, because that's something, unfortunately, that affects a big source about the populations that we're talking about. Education, we've already talked a little about that pre-purchase, post-purchase, and even helping them with ongoing education, because sometimes we tend to help them from the very beginning and right afterwards, but how do we help them afterwards? How do they address, how to file for their taxes? How do they can address for paying for other types of things that arise after they purchase a home, 2, 3, 4 years afterwards? A network of how people can reach out to not only the realtor or lender, but also families, friends, other institutions and organizations that may be able to help them throughout this process. And health, overall, just that is something that we don't always look to when we're talking about home ownership, because that also can affect someone negatively, if we don't treat them, whether it's with their mental issues or even physical issues, that can unfortunately help hurt them in many ways. And resources, we already talked about that, how to access those resources in different ways.
Awesome, thank you all so much. Any last words, Talia, for our illustrious guests?
Yeah, I guess we're at time, and we wish we had more time to continue this activity. We did have a couple more slides, which are mostly just links to resources within OHCS, but I'm failing to get to them. So yeah, here's some links. There's too many. You're not going to write them down anyway. So thank you everyone for coming, and we look forward to finding ways to continue this conversation because obviously this was just the start. So thanks for joining us, and see you at the conference.
And hopefully we'll be able to share the PowerPoint with folks
Yeah.
so that you can actually click on those links.
Yeah.
No, we didn't have
wants to? Where do you want? Who'd you now? Awesome. Yeah, good job.
Waiting for you too.
Good job, you two. And Sarah, who wasn't here.
Yeah.
She was helpful too, and instrumental.
I wonder if we should.
Who wants to take the sheets of paper?
Oh,
My gut says it's probably sit with one of you two. Guess I'll